know this is not a news flash, but we've been kicking JD's ass up and down the state for months now. You know that. But we were up in Toledo, and I'd always was talking to a friend of mine about, we got this big bus now, right? Because I drove in a truck for like 18 months, and I'm a little big for a truck for that long. And so we got this big bus, and we were talking, like, we gotta get some motorcycles to join us around on the bus. So we were up in Toledo a couple weeks ago. We ran into some IBEW friends who had all their motorcycles. And I said, my mom always used to say, the Lord works in mysterious ways. So a couple of beers in, taking pictures with my guys, and now the building trades and the unions are escorting us for the rest of this campaign. And I want to bring them up here and say hello.
On behalf of the IBW, I'd like to present this flag from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers to Tim Ryan.
Thank you guys. IBEW motorcycle crew. Well, I'm so excited to be in Dayton. As many of you know, I come from an area, and Andrea, we come from an area that's not too far. We grew up right outside of Youngstown, Ohio. And so I remember coming down to Dayton because we had in Trumbull County, we had Delphi. We had the auto industry. And we were going through a lot of crazy stuff together. When you guys were going through it here, we were going through it there. And I remember coming down here on a snowy morning and doing a rally with the IUE, CWA, and the local unions here in Dayton. And I remember leaving that rally thinking, man, this is a lot like home. Some of the good stuff, good people, gritty people, determined people, but also people who've been on the other side of globalization and automation and bad trade deals that, quite frankly, both parties passed that devastated communities like ours. So I will tell you that I am absolutely pumped that I'm going to be able to fight like hell for you guys in the United States Senate. And they have not seen anything like me up in the United States Senate. I'm going to tell you that right now. And you saw my wife. I hear her speak, and I'm so glad she said yes when I asked her to marry me. But I will tell you, when we were first dating, she was teaching 4th grade at Seaborn Elementary School in Middle Ridge, Ohio, right outside of my hometown. She taught there, phenomenal teacher. And we started dating. We were only dating for a few weeks, I think, maybe a month or two. And it was a Friday, and her kids in her 4th grade class said, Mrs. Gentile, was her maiden name, Mrs. Gentile, you have to come to the high school football game tonight because we're all going to the game and you have to go to the game. And you know how 4th graders could be. They mentioned it 136 times throughout the day, is Mrs. Gentile coming to the game. So she called me, and I was congressman at that point. She said, hey, these kids, they really want me to go to this game tonight. Do you mind if we, pass on date night and we go to the football game? I said, absolutely, let's go. Be great, Congressman shows up at the football game. Be cool. So we go and we're walking into the football game. And I hear a kid say, Mrs. Gentile. And this kid runs up to my wife and gives her a big hug. She hugs this kid. He was a high school kid. He wasn't a 4th grade kid. He was a high school kid she taught years ago. And I thought, that's nice. And then I hear, like it starts making its way around the football game. Mrs. Gentile's here. Mrs. Gentile's here. And it's like 34 seconds later, these kids from high school to 4th grade are 4 deep around my wife, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm the congressman. Like, what just happened? I got 1 deep. I got like the guy selling hot dogs was talking to me, right? But it was at that moment that I fell in love with my wife. And it was also at that moment I absolutely understood in my bones the power of a great school teacher for our kids. I think one of the great things that we've lost in this country that teachers like that can remind us of, you know, it's sad almost that we've lost that sense that we can make a difference. You know, I want to get that back because that's alive. That's alive in our society in so many ways. We're good people, do good things. We're good people want to help each other, not hurt each other. Where good people want to assist and be a part of the solution, not just a part of the problem, not to make matters worse. We've got to enter a phase, guys, that we say no to more hate, no to more fear, anger, jealousy, division. We've got to say no, right? And we've got to come to grips with we have a choice. We can make a difference. You know, we need more love. We need more compassion. We need more understanding. We need more forgiveness. We need a period of reconciliation and healing in this country. We can't, you know, the human species has this amazing ability, which has gotten us this far, to project out what things will be like. And when we project out this current situation, another 10 years or another 20 years, it's not pretty. You know, but if we understand that our species survived this long, like we developed language and listening and our eyes, everything we developed was to work as a team to survive. We weren't big, strong, fast. You know, we're pretty measly running around the deserts, you know, in the jungles. But we started to figure out, you know what, if we talk to each other, if we listen to each other, if we look out for each other, we develop as social creatures. And when we do that, we're strong. And we watch it. Every weekend we watch football, right? We watch the Bengals when they're doing really well. They're working as a team. When they're not working as a team, they look like the Cleveland Browns. You know? Like that's just how it goes. Yes. Yeah, you're going to get one Browns joke with me here. Yes, you are. Well, I tell you, I'm a tortured Browns fan. I'm 49 years old. I have been in therapy every January for 30 years after the Browns season. Okay? This hurts. It hurts to admit it. But we did go last week. Just saying. Just saying. But it's about coming together and working as a team. And I played a lot of sports. A lot of you have too. And you've watched sports and you've watched your kids play sports. When a team is really humming, right, really doing well, they love each other. They absolutely love each other, right? That team chemistry, right? You guys that work on a job together, there's an affection for each other, right? There's a bond that you have. What we have to get back to in the United States is the bond of being an American. We are all Americans, and we should be grateful for that. This country has fed more people, clothed more people, cured more people, and liberated more people than all the other countries in the world combined. This is a great country. And we have an obligation as citizens of this country to make sure it stays great. And that is not going to happen when we entertain and do the kind of things that are happening now in our society. And I just want to say this. I want to say this because I think it's important and I wish I didn't have to talk about it. But what we saw happen the other day with Paul Pelosi, okay? I don't want to talk about this very long, but I do want to make this point. The Speaker of the House of Representatives is the third highest constitutional officer in the United States. It's President, right? Vice President, Speaker of the House. So when the Speaker of the House's husband, who is 82 years old, gets beat up with a hammer, right? And there are people who are the extremists in society and celebrate that, or say that person we should bail that person out of jail, right? I don't care what your politics are. That is not about Democrat and Republican. That's about being a civilized human being, right? Come on. What are we doing? What are we doing? We can't live in a society where we say, you know what? It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong to hit an 82-year-old grandfather over the head with a hammer. That's wrong. Unless they're from the other political party. No. We're not going there. We're going to stop that shit right now. Right? We're going to stop that shit right now. And then you get what Donald Trump Jr. posted on social media. Right? He posted a picture of a pair of underwear that a grandfather would wear. Right? With a hammer on it, and said, I found my Halloween costume. I'm going as Paul Pelosi. That is a level of disgust that we all should absolutely condemn. And I will tell you, if that was a Democrat who did that, I'd be kicking their ass on this too. Make no mistake about it. So, I just want to say there's a lot at stake, and I'm done with that. There's a lot at stake here. I think there is something that is very fundamental on the ballot in a few days, right? This issue of freedom is on the ballot, okay? What we saw come out of the Supreme Court last week was the largest governmental overreach into the private lives of American citizens in the history of our lifetime, right? A complete violation of freedom, okay? And we have to make sure we preserve the big government staying out of our bedroom and big government staying out of our doctor's offices. But we also want to talk about economic freedom, which I've been talking a lot about in this campaign. Because when you come from outside the Mahoning Valley, you've seen a broken economic system where both parties have sold out to the corporate interests that shipped our jobs down to the southern part of this country, then to Mexico, then to China. There is no economic freedom if there's no jobs here in the United States. And that's what we got to fight to bring back to this country. Good paying, middle class jobs. To places like Dayton and Youngstown and Warren and Fort Smith and other communities in this state. Right? And economic freedom is an important thing. What does it mean in Dayton, Ohio? What's the definition of economic freedom in Dayton, Ohio? Right? It's probably the same from where I come from. Do you have enough money in your pocket to take care of your business? To take care of your family? If somebody gets sick, you can take care of them. Right? If somebody wants to buy a house, you can maybe help out if you're the mom or the dad. Right? If you retire with some dignity, without having to stare at the ceiling wondering how you're going to pay your bills. That is not economic freedom. That is a group of people, millions of them in this state and country, that are trapped in a broken economic system. And you can't have a system where, since the 1970s, CEO pay has gone up 1,300%. 1,300%. And wages for average workers has been flatlined. If the same percentage increase happened to workers, the average worker would be making $650,000 a year. Okay? Now you union guys, go negotiate that contract, right? I think your members will be pleased. I don't know why the presidents keep getting reelected to their union, right? That'd be pretty good. But think about how outrageous that is. How outrageous that is. And as I travel this state to see so many people working so hard, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and still can't make ends meet, right? You still can't make ends meet. That ain't right. That ain't right. And what's happened in modern American history is that the wealthy folks in this country have done nothing but try to divide us, right? Who's black? Who's white? Who's gay? Who's straight? Who's a man? Who's a woman? Who's in a union? Who's not in a union? Who's in a public sector union? Who's in a private sector union? Like divide. This happens 30 or 40 years. And the CEO gets a $1,300 pay increase, and we all get screwed, right? So what I want this campaign to be, I want this campaign to be the moment in time where the Daytons of the world, where the Youngstowns of the world, the Warrens of the world, the Portsmouth, Marietta, Lima, Toledo, like these towns, we put the goddamn flag in the ground and say no more. No more. No more. This is not happening any longer. And if it happens, we're going to go down swinging. I think the country is ready for this. I've traveled this state for 18 months. This state is ready for some leadership. And I will tell you that Ohio, at every moment that this country has been challenged, it has been Ohioans and Ohio that has stepped up and met that moment. You can go back to the Civil War. This country was getting torn apart, right? And the Union had some really strong generals, right, that saved the Union and kept this country together. You know where those generals were from? Ohio, right? And when Hitler was marching across Europe and we had to stop him, it was the men from Ohio who went to Europe to liberate them, and it was the women who went to the factories to build the arsenal of democracy. It was here in Ohio that we did that, right? And when President Kennedy said, we got to go to the moon, where were the astronauts from? All right. Are we clear on this? Are we clear? Because now is the moment for us, right? Our parents and grandparents stormed the beaches at Normandy, right? They did so much for us. They were great. They were great. That doesn't make us great. It's our turn. We have to step up. We have to increase our level of citizenship. We have to recommit ourselves, no matter how difficult things are, to get re-engaged into the public discourse. We've got to be the ones to bring more love, more concern, more forgiveness, more reconciliation. I want us to be the leaders of this country again. I want us to help this country put the age of stupidity behind us and help us move into an age of possibility, an age of reform, an age of reconciliation. That's what I want us to do. And we have an obligation to do that. And what I love about you more than anything, right? And we're from similar towns, and I don't know all your names, right? But I'll tell you this, I know you. Absolutely know you, right? That's why I like hanging out with you. That's why I like having the biker guys. These are my peeps, right? I love coming to Dayton. I love going to Toledo. I love going to Portsmouth. You know, and somebody said, you really seem to enjoy this. I go, you know, it's kind of sick, but I kind of do, you know? I like being with average people because that's how I grew up. My family, they were all union, right? Union construction, auto workers, steel workers. They were, you know, I loved it. You know, they weren't wealthy people, but they had love. You know, we cared about each other and we enjoyed each other. We had a good sense of humor and we kept things light, even though times were sometimes tough. And I think that's important. But what I'm excited about is I feel like we're kind of coming together, you know? You know, we're kind of like, you know me and I know you, right? And you know what I know about you? I know that you are not here today for yourself. You are here for your kids. And you are here for your grandkids. That's why you're in this hall right now. And the leadership I'm asking you to provide as you leave here and campaign for us in the next 4 or 5 days is we got to go out and crank this thing, right? We got to go out and crank this thing. But you are, and why I love you is you're in the arena, right? You're not the ones that pull the blankets up over your head in the morning and say, the world's too tough out there. I won't, and all the excuses you get. No, you show up on a Thursday night in a union hall to support a candidate who's ready to go to Washington, D.C. and raise some hell on your behalf so we can get this country going again. And I need your help. I need your help. Right? You saw my family. We got 2 others that are in college that couldn't be here. right? You saw my family. We're normal folks, right? We're normal people that just, we care, right? We care. Like J.D. Vance was like, Tim Ryan never had a real job. I said, look, man, you don't get me. You don't get me because I was raised to help other people. Right? I don't take credit for it. It was my mom. It was my grandparents. My dad's involved in all kinds of stuff. Right? We're here to help. That's what we're here for. Use your time and your talent to help other people. And I will never apologize for doing that. Never. You're never going to hear it come out of my mouth. And so we are in the arena. We are fighting blood, sweat, and tears. We're not up in the stands, right? Being the critics. We're in the game. Right? We're not stressed out, like General Mattis used to say, right? He used to say, I don't get stress, I give stress, right? We're not up in the stands being critical, right? And people are being critical of us. We are staying absolutely focused. And I will tell you, I will go to any corner of this state. I will talk to anybody. Hell, I'll go into a Fox town hall to defend you guys, right? I will go to a Fox town hall. Now, I don't know if any of you guys saw that, but it was like Tim Ryan got 39 follow-up questions, and J.D. Vance, they were like, J.D., I have a question for you. How do you spell J.D.? Like, I'm watching them, I'm going, what? You know, what just happened? But I like it, because I'm Irish too, you know? And you know the old Irish saying, is this a private fight or can anyone get into it? So I'm good with that. I'm good with that. So here we go, right? Here we go. We're in the arena. We have an opportunity of a lifetime here in Ohio because this race will not just shift Ohio. This race will shift the United States of America in favor of working class people. And I've been known to get everybody mad at me, you know, on Democrats, Republicans, and I'll tell you why. Right? Because I tend to speak my piece. And sometimes I get in trouble for that. But I don't see that changing anytime soon. Right? But when I hear people at the national level say things like, we have to invest into races where the states have more or an increasing rate of college graduates. That's where we need to campaign. Ooh, frost me. That frosts me. And I'm like, okay, right? You guys are all the same. We're all similar, right? You tell me I can't do something, right? I tell you can't. You're like, okay, here we go, right? You pin it on you pin the headlines on the billboard in the locker room. And you stare at it. They said you can't beat them, right? So we are going to pin the extremists. Okay, we're going to pin the extremists, and we're going to put that whole movement to bed. And then we're going to teach the Democratic Party that the working class folks, whether they're white or black or brown or men or women or gay or straight, we are the backbone of this party. We're the backbone of the country. And that's what we're going to do. So I just want to tell you one last story, because I know it's a school night. My wife reminds me of that all the time. Just don't talk too long. It's a school night. People ask me all the time, there's so much going on. Like you watch the news and you probably watch too much of the news. I can see it in your faces, right? Don't do that. It's bad for you. But you watch the news and I want to say hi to Dawn Moss, our Vets for Ryan coordinators here. We've got a ton of Vets for Tim Ryan here. Give Dawn a round of applause. And you watch the news and you see all the kind of cultural stuff on TV, and you watch the democracy stuff and the stuff I talked about with Mr. Pelosi and that kind of thing. And you watch it and you think like, oh my God, what is going on in this country? Election denying and banning books and crazy stuff, right? You watch it and you're like, what is going on? The country's coming apart. And so people see this on the news and then they hear me and they say, with all this going on, why do you talk about jobs so much? And I said, well, let me tell you about my grandfather. My grandfather worked in a steel mill in Niles, Ohio for 40 years. He worked 5 days a week. He worked 40 hours a week. Had a good job, good middle class job. He was treasurer of his union, his local steelworker union. And so I asked people, I said, you know what he did in his free time? He was the lead usher at 1045 Mass at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church. He ran the beer tent at the summer festival, right? He was able to do that because he had a good job. He was able to participate in the civic life of his community, and he chose to do that through his church because he had a good job. And the church was very important to him as a first-generation Italian American. Right? So he participated, but he had time to do that. And he always told us, you vote for school levies, you vote for police and fire levies, you vote for mental health levies, you vote for library levies. Why? They help you build a strong community. And we want community again. But he was able to do that because he had a good job. He wasn't having to cut his pills in half or trade off his pills for food. He could get his pills, buy his food, save some money, chip some money in at the church, right? And then vote for the levies. That's why we got to bring good paying jobs to Dayton, Ohio, because that will allow you to build your community out in so many different ways. The best social program's a job, for God's sake, right? And I always remember on Saturday nights, my grandparents would get all dressed up. My grandfather, he'd put a tie on, he'd put his cufflinks on, he'd have a suit on, and he'd be all dressed up. My grandmother, she'd put her earrings on, she'd put her lipstick on, and they would get with all my great aunts and great uncles. They would have a few cocktails, and they would go out and dance to the big bands. They had joy. They had happiness. They were pursuing happiness because they had good jobs. It allowed them to do that. And that's why we got to come together, stop the stupid fight, stop the partisanship, isolate the extremists, and come together to solve problems. Some of these problems will have progressive solutions. Some may have more free market conservative solutions. We're never going to figure that out if we don't talk to each other, right? Most people understand that solving these problems are complicated, right? Let's come together and solve these problems. And so many of you have had to do this. It's a tough thing to do. When someone close to you passes away, you have to go get their stuff. And so when my grandfather passed away, my mom said, we just lived a few blocks from them, my mom said, we gotta go get Grandpa's stuff. So I said, okay, here we go. Go down to the house, and we're sitting there, and I'm heartbroken because like my grandfather was absolutely my guy, like my guy. He came to every sporting event I ever played in, from the time I was playing Little League baseball, flag football, to quarterback of the high school football team. I'd look up in the stands, and my grandfather was there. He was always there. So I was crushed. I was just absolutely devastated. So we're down at his house, and we're going through his stuff, and I find this book. And it's titled The Legacy of Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church. And so I start looking through this book, and I start crying, and my eyes are welled up, and tears are coming down my face, and I'm flipping through the pages, and what do I see? A picture of my grandfather. And you know when you lose somebody and then you see that first picture, like, oh my God, there he is. There's Grandpa. And I look at the picture, and his face is so much thinner than I ever remembered. And his hair was so much darker than I ever remembered. And he had these work clothes on. And he had the hat on that like the immigrant guys used to wear. My grandmother called it a coupeline. He had the coupeline on. And I'm looking at the picture and I'm crying. And underneath the picture it says, John Rizzi, volunteer. And I thought, yeah, that's Grandpa. Giving, serving, doing things for people other than himself, caring about people other than himself. It's my guy. That's my guy. And he's standing in front of a half-built brick wall. That I later find out that half-built brick wall became Our Lady of Mount Carmel grade school that I went to. And that my brother went to. And that every Italian Catholic boy and girl in Niles, Ohio went to that school. That my grandfather helped build. Okay? This guy was literally building my future. He was literally building my brother's future. And a future for all those boys and girls who went to that school. And I just think when you strip away all of the insanity in politics today, all the extremism, all the craziness, all the negativity, all the toxicity, when you strip that all away, it comes down to one question. Are we building a future for our kids and for our grandkids? That's the question. That's why you're here. That's why I'm here. And we have that in common. And the other thing we have in common is that our kids and our grandkids, the one thing that's certain is that they're going to live together in this society. And the question is, are we going to give them a culture where it's okay to hate, where it's okay to provoke and promote fear and division and violence? Or do we want to hand them a society that is built on love and compassion and concern for each other? The kind of society that my grandfather was trying to build. And your parents and grandparents too. And I will tell you, I love you guys. And I love you because your kids and your grandkids are going to talk about you the way I talk about my grandfather. Because you're in the arena. You're in the fight. And you're prioritizing and you're shifting the mindset of this state and country by rejecting the extremists. And by saying, no, we have a lot more in common. We're Americans. We're Ohioans. We're compassionate people. We have all that in common way before we get into the Democrat-Republican thing. Way before that. We share values, we share concerns, and we share a future. And that's what's at stake in this election. And Bobby Kennedy used to say this at the end of his campaign speeches when he ran for president. I do not promise you ease. I do not promise you comfort. But I'll promise you these. I'll promise you weariness. I'll promise you hardship. And I'll promise you sacrifice. And with these, I will promise you victory. Victory for Ohio. Victory for America. And most importantly, victory for our kids and our grandkids. Let's put this flag in the ground, Dayton, Ohio. Let's turn this thing around. Let us come together. Let us stay in the arena for 4 or 5 more days. Let us win this thing. We're going to change Ohio, and we're going to change the United States of America. Thank you so much.